Hey everyone, I'm Nimput, and I'm here to do a tutorial on the 100% speedrun for Sonic R, GameCube version. It's important that you play the GameCube version for this, the other versions work differently, so what you see me do mostly just works on the GameCube version. I already made a tutorial on the clip outs that you use in this run, but that's just the clip out, so I wanted to do another tutorial which shows the whole run basically to help make this category more accessible. So what I have right here is the YouTube upload of my 11:49 world record of the category, and I'll just go through it step by step and explain what I do. So the first thing before you start the run, what you want to do is make sure you go to the game settings and change the weather to clear. And I would also recommend changing the difficulty to easy. Just technically, in the best case scenario, that shouldn't matter, but just to be on the safe side, put it on easy. You really lose nothing doing that. So let's get into the run actually. So you want to start with Knuckles and you want to start in Reactive Factory. The reason we start in Reactive Factory is because Reactive Factory has quite inconsistent ring RNG that you want to get out of the way first, and also Reactive Factory unlocks Metal Knuckles, who is pretty important for the rest of the run. So I'm gonna assume you already know the basics of the movements here for this game, but I'll still try to keep it beginner friendly and explain like the basics as we get to them. So at the start of the run, before the countdown ends, you already want to charge a spin dash like that, and in order to be able to do that before you actually get control of the character, you need to do that with the X button on the GameCube controller. The B button won't work. And then as soon as the countdown ends, you just do a jump to immediately cancel the spin dash but are on full running speed. And then you switch to holding B for running. So first thing you do is you collect these rings right here and this emblem. There's no real way to know what it's going to give you. I got 20 right here, which is really lucky, but you can also get pretty much anything. So then you slide into this wall right here. So sliding can get you extra speed, so that's very useful. This is why we bump into a lot of walls. So because it sets us up for drifts and you get extra speed from it. So this is a good wall. You want to go around this turn in this path right here. And this wall is perfect to get into a slide and then slide around into that corner. Like that. And then here for this section, before you get to the pool, you can squeeze in a little counter drift. So counter drifting is usually you have the left and the right drift button, and usually you press the respective drift button according to which direction you're going. But if you press the opposite drift button, you can carry a lot of speed out of turns and keep basically your drift speed on a straight path when you're coming out of a turn and gain extra speed. So this is not super useful for this run. So if you have trouble with counter drifting, you can very easily just leave it out for this category. It doesn't make that big of a difference. Important to note also, if you have experience with the no out of bounds categories, you play no out of bounds categories on snowy weather, which means the floor is frozen, which means you get less grip. So here you have clear weather, so you actually do get more grip than in no out of bounds runs, which makes getting into drifts and getting speed out of it bit harder. So just keep that in mind. But you can, as you come out of the drift, you can get into a counter drift basically from around here until you make it to the pool, and then you just jump and glide over the pool to collect this coin right here. So this turn is a bit tricky. I go into here, start about drifting around at this line here, and then as I hit the wall, I kind of let go of everything, like let go of running and do a small jump, and then just turn around, bump into the wall, and walk in here. It's a bit tricky. You need to get a bit of a feel of it, but yeah, it's so I just let go of running here for a short moment as I bump into the wall to make sure I get around the corner. Get on the spring, and then this wall right here, you can get a drift off, but because you don't have a lot of momentum at this point, it's really hard to actually get a good drift and gain speed from it. Most of the time when you try it, you just kind of lose speed because you go into the wall instead of going straight. So only do that if you're very confident in your optimization drifting abilities. Otherwise, don't bother with that. Now collect this thing and then drift a little bit into this wall here. Don't go too harsh, but just like get a slide started where the road starts curving up, and then just hold right and drift around this, and this should turn out about this. You might have to, depending on where you end up with a jump, you might have to experiment a bit with your angle. There's no real good way to explain this, but just kind of drift into the wall and then just keep holding right drift and right. So jump over this speed pad right there. Because obviously the speed pads take away your rings and you want to collect rings as quickly as possible. So just jump over that here. And then try, I missed them here because I was trying to go for a bit more for the rings. But especially at the beginning when you're just trying to get runs going as consistently as possible, don't go too hard on the drifts here and try to collect some more of these rings. Then do a small hop. You don't be careful with this one. Don't turn like left of this barrier here too early, because there's like an invisible wall extending up here. So if you jump too diagonal to get to this line of rings here, you can like bump into an invisible wall here, and it really slows you down and just makes you feel bad. So just jump over these, hop and glide. Get this coin right here, turn around, jump over here. This movement right here is a bit tricky. They're pretty sharp turns, but you'll get a feel for it over time. So don't worry if it's not going well right away. Get this one. You can like do a little jump into the slope there and bump into the wall. Sometimes when you run up it, you like get a really awkward like speed loss or kind of get stuck. So the way to avoid that is just doing a little jump into the wall. Then get these rings. And now, so I got a low 37 here. That's a very good time. If you're starting out, try aiming for 38, 39. 38 is very good if you get it to there. And then as you get a hang of it more, you can go down to getting 37s, and eventually, if you really got the movement down, you can get 36s. Mid 36 is the best I've ever gotten. So yeah, just sometimes to aim for. Alright, now go around, get this line of rings, jump up here, get this coin. So what I do here, this is a pretty cool strat. I just walk up straight to this to the submarine, and then I just jump and turn to the right, and that bumps me into the invisible wall and basically lines me up perfectly for going up the ramp on the right side. So you don't really have to slow down here or anything. You can just jump, turn right mid-air, and it bumps you around perfectly like that. You don't even have to jump. You can just kind of drop off the submarine, and I can show again. You can just kind of drop off the submarine, and it puts you around. Usually you just land right behind the water. You see right here, I land pretty much here, and I didn't jump, so this lines up pretty much perfectly. If you want to take it safe, sometimes you do land in the water and lose a bit of time. If you want to take it safe, you can do a jump off the submarine. But yeah, try to get these. Also, if you try to get all these rings on the uphill slope there, it's tricky to get around the turn. So just like as you come up here, as soon as you're on the flat part, just do a little jump that helps you get around the corner and bump into the wall without losing any speed. Collect these rings and then this emblem. Now, here is where routes diverge a little bit, depending on what you're going for. So, by the end of this ramp, you need to have at least 100 rings for the fastest route. So this is what makes this track a bit inconsistent and why it's good we can do it at the beginning. So if you don't have 100 rings, don't worry about it and just do another lap and then come back around and then just do the rest normally. If you do have 100 rings, you can do the faster route where you get the remaining pickups now on lap 2 and then clip out on lap 3. But if you don't have enough rings, just do an extra regular lap and then do what I do now in this run and then just finish the race without doing an out of bounds. So yeah, if you're starting out, don't worry about getting the 100 rings here because that can be quite a roadblock if you're unlucky. But yeah, as I've said, you need 100 rings here. So if you have that, you can do this. Slide into here again, and then drop down in front of this gate. You really want to drop down here because as soon as you stand in front of it, it opens. So if you like bump into the side or so and get slowed down, you delay it opening, and that delays also when the emerald gets shot out of the cannon. So make sure you don't bump into anything here because it just increases the time you have to wait for the emerald. So what I do here is I stand in the middle of this tile right here, and then I see there's the shadow right here, and you're gonna see it move down here. And as soon as it reaches this line, I do a jump and then start holding forward in the middle of the jump, and that already kind of like makes me get a little bit of momentum mid-air and allows me to pick up the emerald a bit sooner while already building up momentum. Right there, and that gets the emerald. So same deal here with the gate. Just make sure to go in front of it. Don't bump into the side or anything, because it just delays. Now you don't see it very well here, but you can see, depending on how you position yourself, you can see the submarine here, and then you see the emerald coming out of it at the top. You don't really see it well here, so sorry about that. You can see the smoke coming out of here, but basically, like, what I kind of do is, like, around the time the emerald comes out, I wait like half a second and then I start running to try to catch the emerald while it's coming down midair. That was a bit late here. You kind of have to experiment a little bit. This is pretty tricky to get down, so better take it safe and wait a little longer than missing it. But yeah, go around here. I jump through these pylons here because they tend to slow you down a lot more, I feel like, when you just run into them. And get some of these rings. So you need 20 rings now to get to the last coin. So if you don't have those already, try to get some of these rings around here. There's also some more rings coming up before you get there. So there's plenty of rings here. Just getting them fast is kind of tricky. I try to get some of these here, pick one or two up of these, and then go around and then get the rest on the uphill ramp. As you go around this turn, be careful. This corner right here has a much bigger hitbox than it looks like. You kind of have to, it kind of goes until about here, so don't cut it any closer than this, or you'll bump into this and get stuck. Again, jump through the pylons here and then go up the hill. So get this line of rings. There's a lot more rings here than it looks like, so you can very easily get 5 to 10 rings on this line of rings. And then there's also this emblem right here to get some last ones. So you can get 20 rings as you make it there. But yeah, now go in here and just brake by holding both drift buttons, and then try to grab this coin. So this is much harder than you might think if you're not super familiar with this game's mechanics. Moving slowly in this game is really awkward, so it takes some practice. So just break down completely by holding both drift buttons, and then you turn quicker if you're in some movement, but also if you have too much movement, you turn slower again because you have speed. So what you gotta try to do is just like slow down completely and then tap the accelerate button quickly, and that lets you turn quickly and hopefully lets you pick up the coin without losing too much time. So now we got to the clip. As I've said, I already explained this in another video, but I'll explain it here again. So get into this corner right here, and now what we're trying to do is clip out of bounds here. So the idea is basically to just wiggle back and forth. So you hold up left, up right, up left, up right to move back and forth. And as you hold left, you press the left drift button, and as you hold right, you press the right drift button. And that allows you to wiggle. So it's important you hold the drifts while wiggling, because that makes you turn quicker. Otherwise, you turn super slow and it takes ages until you eventually clip. But yeah, this is inconsistent. So it sometimes works really quick and sometimes takes ages, but there's a certain visual cue I kind of used here that I feel like increases my chances. So I turn until about here, and then once I kind of like meet the middle of this corner right here, this is about the middle, I turn back, and I turn until the door frame here covers my screen, and then I turn back again. So this is kind of my visual cue for clipping out of bounds here. And there you go. So once again, get on this side thing. Oops. Get on this side thing here next to the finish line. So the invisible wall, which clips you back into the track, is pretty much exactly on this black line here. So just don't get any closer than this. And the finish line extends about until the middle of this. So you have to pass this around here. So make sure you pass this, and then once again just slam both drift buttons to brake, and then quickly tap the B button to go around in a circle here. Like that. So that puts you that puts you in the in the challenge race, where we basically do the same thing again. So just like quickly tap B at the start and turn to turn around. You can counter drift up this wall here, but you have to be careful to slow down again as you reach the top. Otherwise, you just way overshoot the corner. So you can like counter drift up until like this bend here on the turn, but as you reach this, you should slow down again, just by pushing a bit against the drift again, and that should slow you down by the time you reach the corner up here, and then you get into here and you do the same thing again, basically. Oh, that was good. Yeah, so you saw there I got pretty close to clipping back and bounds. So yeah, this is pretty fine. So my hitbox is about as big as the shadow, and I think I can clip the hitbox a little bit into the barrier without clipping back and bounds. So this is still perfectly fine. You can touch this black line. You just can't like move more than halfway over it. Pretty much is how it works. So yeah, go around. And then on the last lap, you go really slow in the first 2 cycles because you obviously want to make the turn as quick as possible. And on the last lap, you can go a little faster again because you can take a wider turn and clip back and bounce. It's a bit faster than just staying slow and doing the super tight circles. And now here, this is the cutscene skip. So as you see the screen fading out like this, basically as soon as it goes black, pause the game, and then you see the pause menu, and then you just menu down once. So the game still considers you being in a challenge race, and in a challenge race you can't press the retry button. So if you just menu down once, you go to retire already. As you see here, this is a 1 frame difference. Continue, 1 frame, retire. So just menu down once and you're at retire, and then select that. Don't do like these inputs super quickly, because if you do the menuing on the pause menu without being able to see the pause menu, so basically if you do it so quickly that it all happens like before here, basically, the game will not unlock you Metal Knuckles and will not consider you having beaten the challenge race. So make sure you do it quickly, but do it slow enough that you still see the pause menu while you're doing it. So yeah, that's how you do that. Can't wait for this beautiful run to get ruined by the fence again. So for the next track, we're going to Resort Island. So select Metal Knuckles for this. Metal Knuckles is a bit hard to get used to if you're used to regular Knuckles. But actually, Metal Knuckles is very comfy to control, lots of grip. The only problem with Metal Knuckles, the controls are a bit stiff and don't turn super tight, so takes a bit to get used to, but once you get used to it, it's pretty comfortable to control. Also, Metal Knuckles has the fastest acceleration out of all characters. So you don't have to worry about bumping into anyone. You can literally just hold B at the start and you'll always outrun them. So this first jump is pretty tricky. So you wanna sort of like follow along this trail of rings until about here. And then you jump. And then as you hit this wall, you wanna jump again. And then hit the right drift. So follow along this, not drifting yet. Then about here, or a bit later, somewhere around here, I get into a jump onto this wall, and as soon as I land, I jump again, and then I hold the right drift. To be safe, you can start hovering here to have more time adjusting your angle. But if you have some muscle memory on this, you can get up here pretty consistently and collect this coin. But yeah, this jump is really hard, and I occasionally mess it up. Yeah, just practice it a little bit. You should be good. So just drop down back here, get this coin. This is blind, so you kind of have to get a good feel for where it is. Collect these. Get as much of these rings as you can, then collect this this emblem right here. And now, so first thing, this is the reason why you use Metal Knuckles for this. There's water here, but Metal Knuckles can just jump on the water without losing any speed. So as soon as you touch the water, pretty much any time, immediately jump. It doesn't matter if it's a big jump or small jump, just jump as soon as you touch the water. That'll preserve your momentum. And now, this turnaround, you want to get this coin right here. This turnaround is pretty tricky, so the fastest way to do it is to sort of land around here where I'm aiming for, and then turn right and try to hit this middle sign here. And that'll prevent you just from going behind the island and having to slowly turn around behind it. The sign can sort of bump you into, at least block your speed and prevent you from going further than you want. Yeah, you need a bit of practice as well to figure out when to start turning to hit the sign, but this is the fastest way to do it. Try to get these rings, small jumps, get some of these rings. Then this is pretty tricky. There's this little like kind of bump in the wall here. This is a very small wall, and there's a sharp corner here, so missing it, basically if you get stuck here on this, you lose all your speed, so it's a bit risky to go for that. But you can get a really nice drift around here towards the loop if you just slide into this kind of thing right here. But yeah, it's easy to mess up, so if you're just starting out, don't worry about it. And now here, I can't remember what I do in my PB actually, but I don't have a lot of rings, so I assume I take the looping. So if you don't have a lot of rings, which right now I don't, so I have less than 50 rings here. So if you have this amount of rings, definitely take the loop. If you have 60 rings or more, you can relatively comfortably just skip the loop and just save 2 seconds. But if you have this amount of rings, you can technically skip it, but I wouldn't do it because you most likely just end up having to take a detour later in the level and to get the remaining rings. So I would only do it if I have 60 rings or more. So yeah, with this amount of rings, take the loop. Yeah, okay, that's what I do. So now I have close to 70, which is the amount of rings you need for the stage. So one kind of like movement peculiarity about this category is be careful with, for example, if you have enough rings and you just pass it like here, and you just start hopping on the water here. A lot of times you carry a drift around here, or a counter drift rather, by sliding on this wall. And then as you reach the water, be careful with transitions from land onto water. Because if you drift from land onto water, a lot of times your character just kind of like loses all speed and snaps away to the side. So by the time you reach the water, you always want to like straighten out to make sure you don't get that weird snap to the side. But yeah, now as you can kind of cross back around here, jump on the water. Also, this is something to point out here. So I jump here and then I'm about to land on this island. So if you basically land here and then immediately jump, that'll kill all your speed because you don't want to jump on an uphill slope. So if you jump here and you notice you land like this, just run for a moment on the island and then jump again as soon as you're on top of it. So just don't jump on uphill slopes, especially not if you're just landing from a jump. So here's the 20 ring gate. This is where the coin is. Also pretty tricky to get, and if you're low on rings, you really want to try to get all these coins to get these rings here. Which is why I would recommend, especially at the start, to always go for the loop, so you don't have to rely on these because they're easy to miss. And if you're trying to get these rings, it's also much easier to miss the coin. So just make sure you get the coin. Just make sure you have enough rings beforehand, and then make sure you have the coin. So here you can get a little drift on that wall there. But you can also just not do that. Doesn't make much of a difference. Come around here, get the emerald, and yeah, come around here, get this last coin. It's pretty straightforward. So also right here, there's a difference in route you can take. What I do is here, I did all my collecting in lap 1 and 2, and now I turn around, go into this corner over there, and clip out for lap 3. So unless your time in this category is really good, don't do that, because this track is so short that getting a clip out and skipping lap 3 saves almost no time. You basically need a super fast clip out for that to even matter. So what I would recommend usually is do lap 1 the same way I do, then just do a regular lap where you just go around the track as quickly as possible, and then do your collecting on of the remaining coins and the emerald on lap 3, and just don't even worry about the clip out here, because it's more trouble than it's worth, really, unless you're trying to look for every last bit of time save. But if you do go for this, just kind of like drift around here, and then try to brake, so you don't bump with all your speed into this wall like I did here. So that's a bit sketchy what I did right there. Usually you're supposed to like slow down quicker, but so what happened here is I had way more speed than I'm supposed to have. So I bumped into this wall right here, and I kind of fumbled back and ended up in this corner. So you can also get the clip out on this corner. It doesn't really matter. But usually people go for this corner. This is the corner they're familiar with. Um, so doing it here is a bit awkward, but it essentially works the same. You can do it just fine, but probably more comfortable over there. So there I got like a half decent clip, but that's gonna end up with a time of, what is that? 106. So this is like 1 second faster than doing this without the clip. So you see this saves almost no time. So one fence is done. We have to do another fence. So once again, tapping B, turn around. Yeah, and then go on this corner. It's a bit closer to where you want to go as well, so definitely go for this corner under normal circumstances. And the way I wiggle here is basically I wiggle between this line and about the middle of this pole, so around on this range, this is where I wiggle. This seems to work best for me. Sometimes I wiggle a bit more over this corner right here. If I'm having a bad day with this angle, but most of the time this works pretty good. So I would recommend going for about this range with the wiggles. Sometimes you can also like just wiggle on the middle of this, but yeah, you kind of see what works best for you. With doing so this is kind of tricky because you don't really see the finish line from here. So you kind of have to know where to go. So what I use as a visual cue is these fence posts. So basically try to cut this really close right here, close to this fence post, and then basically do the circles here and pass this closely on this. You have to get pretty close to this as well for the lap to count, because the start line does not come very far out here. So probably until about here. So you almost clip back and bounce. So this one is pretty tricky. Don't like rush this one because it's very easy to clip back and bounce here. Also, Metal Knuckles, I already mentioned this, but has a worse turning radius than regular Knuckles. So like be extra careful with doing these circles because you don't get around as easily. Not great, but acceptable. Cutscene skip once again. I'm streaming since 2.5 hours, and I think this is. All right, for Radical City, you stick with Metal Knuckles. So just go straight here at the start, collect these rings, hop over the water. So these rings are pretty tricky to get because they're kind of high in the air. They're easier, I feel like, to get with Metal Knuckles than with the regular Knuckles. If you're used to 100% no out of bounds, for example. I think they're easier to get with Metal Knuckles because I feel like Metal Knuckles is a bit taller. But yeah, I just kind of like try to drift here, like I lean left in this turn. It's not really a drift, but I do hold the left drift button here. I feel like that gives me a pretty good line to collect these, but I'm not always successful with that. Collect this, and now there's two strats for going down here. There's either you can jump around, maybe a bit earlier than this, but you can like jump around here and then just drop down the hole. But I wouldn't recommend that. It saves almost no time. I would really just recommend just braking, just with the two, by holding the two drift buttons. Brake around here, and then I brake really late here. Wow, I wasn't even aware of that. So I brake here, so that seems to work. Obviously, the later you brake and still manage to collect the coin at the bottom, the better. But just take it safe, brake maybe around here. Because you really don't want to miss this coin that's at the bottom of this pit. Collect this, get the emerald here, and then as you'd want to turn to the right through this gate into the water. So once again, be careful of a harsh water snap. So I usually like jump before getting onto the water to avoid getting a water snap. Yeah, try to get these rings, jump. And now this turn right here is really tricky. I try to like align myself with the, like around here, like the side of this black yellow thing, and then I turn from here and hold the right drift button, go through this to collect the coin without losing any speed. And if I do this line right, I can also collect the rings that are here, at least some of them. I missed them there, most of them, but it's no big deal. Now here there's this wall coming up. You can do a very short counter drift here, but don't overdo it because you have to do a super sharp right turn here. So just basically maybe at most for the duration of like this line until about here. Don't counter drift any longer than that because otherwise you're just gonna smack into the corner here. And then turn a bit to the left here and then try to come around about like that. Bump into like this part of the wall here and have it slow you down so you can get around this turn to make it out of this opening. And then jump also and glide to make sure you don't fall down. Jumping helps you get around the turn and preserving some momentum. But yeah, just make sure you glide here. It's pretty easy to fall down there if you just like drop down or something. And also makes it easier to adjust your angle so you can actually collect this coin. So hard left here. And now you want to drop down here. You can drift on this wall and get some extra speed, but I wouldn't recommend it because if you get too much speed or almost any speed at all, it's very easy to fall down here and then overshoot the coin that is at the bottom. So I wouldn't really recommend drifting here. I would just go, ideally not hit this thing, like go in between the wall and this thing, because this also slows you down a little. But like just go in between here. Don't worry about drifting here. And just drop down here like this and collect this coin. Slide into this wall here to get into a drift around here. Hit this spring. So this is a bit tricky. You really want to have a good like right facing angle as you hit the spring, because otherwise you bump into the top of the ledge here and lose all your speed. If you face to the right, you can kind of like move to the right and then get over this corner here rather than bumping into the ledge here, and you preserve your momentum. So there's a lot of rings here to the left, but this stage luckily has a lot of rings already, so you don't really need to go out of your way to grab these. So for this turn right here, just drift into it. Stick to the turn, and then I go through this gate. This seems counterintuitive because this loses rings. And this gate opens anyways on lap 2 because the AI opens it. But you do have enough rings. I just have 52 rings right now, which doesn't seem like a lot. But 52 rings is plenty enough. So just go through this through this gate, lose your 20 rings. Collect the coin after it, because even though you go in here again later, it's faster to just go through here, pick the coin immediately while you're having the momentum, and then just keep going the shortcut through here. Now here you can also ignore these rings. Don't worry, there's plenty of rings coming up. So you're good with just 32 rings here and ignoring these. Do a counter drift the whole way up here to go nice and fast like this. Make sure you don't hit the pillar. Get around this, do more water jumps. Nice high jump over this wall. And now here, yeah, you collect the rings on the water path there. Yeah, and then there's rings here, you can pick up these two. And then there's the emblem here with another line of rings that you can pick up. So you just need 50 rings by the time you make it up there. So there's plenty of rings on the first half of the lap you can pick up to get these. Once you have 50 rings, though, you don't have to worry about rings anymore. You can just, again, counter drift along on this wall. So I get this and then start counter drifting, because that's when I get 50 rings. So I counter drift here, go through this, counter drift here, normal drift here, because a counter drift doesn't actually let you go around the turn, it just lets you preserve speed. So as long as you're still on the straight part like here, you can counter drift, but as soon as you go around the turn, you have to normal drift. So counter drift, normal drift, and stop drifting here. This is a bit tricky to pick up. It's very easy to either miss it to the left or to the right. You just kind of have to get a feel for it, where in the turn it is, and how hard to push the drift to get it. If you're uncomfortable with this, just slow down a little bit so you have time to react. And as you collect it, you do a big jump here and start gliding over here to skip the spring. And now just stick to this corner again, push really hard into it, so you stick to this wall all the way up around here. Just keep push hard right, so you don't lose contact to the wall as little as possible. And then just go into this corner and use this corner to clip out of bounds. So the wiggle range I use here is about this kind of thing, like this red part. So yeah, about like this corner here, and like the middle or 2/3 of this red triangle here. This is the range I wiggle in. And this gets you out of bounds. So just go in between these two pillars. Don't cut it too close. I'm not 100% confident where the finish line ends here. Just make sure you go in between the pillars and you should be good. So the challenge ray is pretty much the same deal as any other one. Turn around, wall slide down here, counter drift again, and then get into this corner. This corner is the same thing as the one we clipped out on before, just on the other side. Works exactly the same. You can even use pretty much the same visual cue, just here it's a yellow part of the wall. So like between here and between around here, that's where you wiggle, and that clips you out of bounds eventually. Turn around and get back to the two pillars and do the laps. So for next level Regal Ruin, you want to switch to Metal Sonic. Metal Sonic works pretty much the same as Metal Knuckles, except he doesn't have a drift. He accelerates slower. Except he doesn't have a glide, sorry. Obviously has a drift. Except he doesn't have a glide and he accelerates slower. And he has slightly sharper turning. So you want to switch to him here, because the slightly sharper turning makes the out of bounds much quicker. But on the previous races, you still need Metal Knuckles, because Metal Sonic can't do the corner clips. So yeah, only switch to Metal Sonic here. So at the beginning of Regal Ruin, it's pretty important. So right here, this is Metal Knuckles. Metal Knuckles has the fastest acceleration out of all characters. So what's going to happen if you just go straight is Metal Knuckles will move here, go in front of you and block you, and bumps you back and slows you down, and you probably also bump into tail stall, and it's terrible. So when you start this race, always the first thing you do is like do a small swerve to the right until you reach the bridge, and by the time you reach the bridge, you should have caught up with Metal Knuckles and should be ahead of him. So just do the swerve to the right, and you should be good.
I don't even know what that means.
Or do a swerve to the right and then jump over him. That should do it, basically. I explained that kind of wrong, but yeah, swerve right and then jump. Get these strings right here. go around this corner. You can bump into this wall a little bit to set yourself up for a drift around here. So I jump here. You don't technically have to do this, but if you go over this seam right here while drifting, this is about the same thing as a water snap, which I explained earlier. So if you drift onto this bump while staying in a drift, what can happen? Most of the time it doesn't, but it can happen, and killed runs for me before. That you drift onto this and then your character just snaps off to the right, and I end up missing this coin right here. So it's much safer to start the drift and then shortly before you reach this, just do a small jump to go up it. Get this coin, water jumps. Now do a small, you can counter drift into this or normal drift. Doesn't really matter. So this jump right here, if you already know any percent now out of bounds, is extremely tight. Luckily in this category we use Metal Sonic, and Metal Sonic has a much higher jump, so it's not so tight anymore. So you can technically cut it like all the way up until to this wall, but I wouldn't recommend going quite this tight because this sets you up very badly for the turn that comes afterwards. So I would still recommend to not go much further than here. So around this range is probably optimal to aim for. And then you want to bump into this wall right here. And then bump into this wall. And then as you bump into this wall, you switch from drifting to the right to drifting hard left. And that gets you around this turn right here. So make sure you get this. You can also brake a little bit here if you're not comfortable getting this coin. Drift around this. Get these rings. Get the get these. Now the best way I like doing this, you obviously in any percent out of bounds you have this strat where you get a specific amount of rings and then only zip until about here, and then get a perfect turn around. You don't do that here because you don't zip, because you want to preserve your rings. So the best way I find doing this is to just like bump into the wall right here, round about here, and then just switch to holding hard right and jump down this, because that kind of bumps you away from the wall and sets you up pretty well to get around this. And then, actually, you don't even have to jump. Yeah, you can just drop down there. And then you land about here, and then as you land, jump again. And just keep holding right and right drift as you jump. Now here once again, here you come out of a drift onto the water, and you don't really want to keep your angle going because you want to go straight now. So be careful with landing here and being in a drift, which can easily like kill your momentum and send you off to the right here a little bit. So make sure you even out a little bit before coming here. And then just try to do... So this kind of actually happened here. So I come out of the turn. I land here on this thing. And then I want to go straight, but I still have like so much like sideways momentum from the drift, and then landing on the water here just kind of throws me off to the side and I lose some momentum. So yeah, just kind of like, I'm not really sure how to fully explain this, but just like try to even yourself out before a drastic angle change on water, I guess. I'm not really sure. I don't fully understand it, but because for example, if you do this jump right here, it's fine. Like you're pretty much already in a full hard right drift. And then I guess like if you do get the snap here, but here you kind of want it because you want around the turn. But like here you don't want to snap to the right anymore because you want to go straight. So just make sure you kind of like try to even yourself out before you go up here. So yeah, this is where I kind of lost a little bit of time in my world record.
Okay, that's bad.
But yeah, rings are pretty straightforward on this level. I think you only need 70, so that's very easy to get. So you don't really have to worry too much about rings here. Again, counter drift. Now, once again, you want to get a bit clearer frame. Um, you want to jump up around here. Now, instead of going left after this turn, you want to keep going to the right. The best way to do that, once again, is to jump up around here. The start of this turn is about the same as I did in lap 1. Just jump up about here, bump into this wall, then bump into this wall, but instead of then switching to holding hard left, just keep holding right, and it should get you around this corner very comfortably. If you like go too far to the right while you're jumping, you might end up missing this whole. You bump on this wall, and then you miss this wall, and end up going in here, and then you have to turn around, and that's kind of bad. So, yeah, just make sure you don't go too hard to the right. You don't go too close to this wall, because you either get a bad bump on this wall, or you miss this wall as well and just bump into this wall in a bad angle. So just take it easy, jump around at this line here, bump into this, then bump into this, and then keep going right. Works every time. Get some of these rings, go around here, get some of these. Pretty tricky to get this coin because it's right in the turn, but you see it coming from pretty far away, so hopefully not too bad. Keep drifting, get a nice jump. You gotta be a bit careful here if you come around this corner, because it's very easy to bump into the sign right here. This has a bigger hitbox than it looks. So as I come up here, I always like to do a jump to make sure I always avoid it. And now again, jump over the zipper, get around this turn. And now just move over here and go up this ramp. It's kind of unclear right now, but yeah, just move up here. There's another line of rings and a coin here, so make sure you get those. Get through this thing here. Aim for this pyramid. There's the emerald inside. Be a bit careful. Don't go too far left, because as soon as you go over this corner right here, you get stuck on it and fall down, and that's a huge time loss. So try aiming for the middle, but don't get too close to this corner. And as soon as you're inside, just hold right and fall off this platform. And yeah, as soon as you fall down, just keep holding, keep jumping repeatedly on the water to preserve your speed, and try to maneuver in between these. So this gap right here is a bit bigger than the other gaps, than this gap and the gap before that. So just take the second to last gap, you'll get through the easiest. And then aim for the spring right here. A good time to reach the spring is about 1 minute. The best I've done is 58, so this is about on pace for a high 58, which is nice. But yeah, I usually, like, if I'm by this at the spring by 1 minute, this is usually a good Regal Ruin in my book. So make sure you jump onto this. Don't run into it. Don't cut the jump too close to save like a few frames. Just be safe and do a big jump. Can really annoyingly lose time if you just do a short hop trying to save a few frames. Don't do that. Now go up here. Now, getting this emerald is really tricky. So there's this emerald up there in the pyramid, and the best way I find getting it is just going up these stairs in about this angle right here. And then you just more or less straight run into this wall. And as you bump into it, you kind of get bumped backwards, and you kind of go backwards here a little bit, and then as soon as you go backwards, you kind of like start jumping and accelerate forward again, and that kind of sets you up pretty well for the emerald. But yeah, it's kind of hard to do. Needs some practice. So this is kind of how I do it here. showing it again, like, very slowly. So yeah, I go up here. I bump into this, and as soon as I bump into this, I jump. So the jump kind of immediately cancels me fumbling backwards. And sort of like gets my momentum like to the left here. And yeah, as soon as I hit the wall, I jump, and I think I hold right. Not 100% sure, but yeah, you definitely need a pretty harsh bump into this wall to set yourself up well for this emerald. That's how you collect that. So here you can slide into this wall. You can also do a counter drift. So first start getting into a drift, and then as you pass this bump, you can keep the counter drift along here, and then keep sliding into this wall. Now here's something funny that happens. In my PB, I actually clipped through this wall here. 99.9% of the time that doesn't happen. So you can usually slide along this wall without worrying about anything. I have done countless of runs of this, and this only happened to me like 3 times ever, I think. So this is very rare. Don't just keep sliding onto this. Don't worry about it. Most of the time you're good. So I got extremely unlucky here and just clipped through this wall here. And where that put me is basically the path that I went on lap 2. So if that happens, just turn left immediately and follow the path back up.
Okay, the game just clips so I lose time to nothing.
So yeah, no big deal. Same thing again, just finish out the race. You should have enough rings to hit the zipper. And yeah, so you just hit it, get a full zip around, and you can finish this level. A good time here would be like 117, 118. 120 is already very solid. I think the best I've gotten was a high 117. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. So this trick right here is pretty difficult. This clip is different than the other ones we've done so far. So yeah, there's an easier clip to do this. You can easier way to do this. You can clip on a different spot on this track, but I wouldn't recommend that because doing the easier clip is like just barely faster, like a few handful of seconds, than doing the track inbounds. And at that point, I don't think it's really worth it, even bothering with a clip. And this clip that I'm about to do is still faster than the easier one, even if you do it second, third, or fourth try probably. So just practice this one and just go for that. I really don't think it's worth it doing the easier clip here. But yeah, it's in my video for unused clips. I can link that in the description if you're curious. But I would really recommend doing the strat that I do here. So turn around here at the start, and now you want to head towards this bank turn. So what you want to aim for is basically around this part right here. You see these two tiles right here, this light one and this dark one. This is where you clip. So another cue is there's this dirt here, and to the left of this dirt, all behind this bump. So what I do, I basically walk onto here, then jump, do a big jump over this water and over this bump here that lands me behind this bump, right in front of these tiles here. So big jump, go over this, and aiming for these tiles. So see if I get a better frame somewhere. Perfect. Okay. So I'm aiming for these tiles. There's already the wall starting here. So you have to get over the wall, and you ideally you want to land somewhere like on this part here. So you want to have a very small jump that just barely makes it over this wall. So I jump around here, do a small tap on the jump button, and if you time it right and if you have the correct jump height, you should make it through here. Like that. So we can see that again, I guess, in a bit slower. So let's see where I jump. Alright, so I jump around here. This is pretty late. I think you can make it if you jump a bit earlier. The later you jump, the more the risk is that you get stuck on the wall, so don't push it too much. But yeah, you have to jump shortly before hitting this, basically, either way. But I feel like you can make it a bit earlier, probably like from here or here. But yeah, I jump here and then I just land around on this. Probably my feet went through this line here. And that gets me through this. So just keep jumping on the water, turn hard left immediately. Go around these kind of gates you see to the left here. Just go around these. You can cut this pretty close here, so basically if you stay on the right half of this emerald, you stay out of bounds. If you go more to the left, you clip back in bounds. But you can kind of like cut it through here and then just turn left around here. But better safe than sorry, so stay a bit more on the outside unless you're doing IL attempts or something. Jump here. As you go into this turn, stop jumping, so Metal Sonic starts running on the water and slowly loses speed, and that should set you up pretty well to lose the speed and sink into the water just as you make it into these pillars. So as you approach the pillars, it's pretty important. Don't go any further than this line right here, because this is where the start section of the level is, where you clip back and bounce. And also don't go any further than here. So around here is like the wall that clips you back into the level. So don't approach this from too far to the left. But yeah, get into this pillar. And then as you lose speed, you sink into the water automatically. And then as you make it here, just set yourself up into the second of the 4 pillars. It's 4 pillars, right? I think it's 4 pillars. Yeah, it's 4 pillars. So set yourself up in the second of the 4 pillars, this one. And then do your tiny circles here. So the finish line... the finish line is not perfectly in the middle of this pillar. It's a bit more on this side right here, so it's about here. So don't like set it up perfectly in the middle of this pillar, because if you set it up perfectly in the middle and then do the corners too tight, you have a chance of missing the finish line. So just be aware the finish line is not perfectly in the middle of this. It's a bit more over here. So do your circles around like this, sort of. Not like this, but like this. And yeah, just keep tapping B quickly
So I guess if
and
the game
go
wants
around
to
this.
make it up for me for being dumped in Regal Ruin, I know how you could do that by giving me a clip in Radiant Emerald. I'd really appreciate
Clip
that.
back and bounce, cutscene
Just do
skip,
that.
and off to the next stage.
4 point. If I get a, if
So
I'm gonna reach
this is the final stage. This is the last thing you have to do. Radiant Emerald. So
maybe.
there's a clip out here.
Not sure.
Um,
Much.
and the clip out is 100% luck dependent. So as you start, you want to slide into this wall. Most of the time, you're not gonna get this, and don't count on it. Don't get upset if you don't get it. This should be your default assumption that you're not going to get a clip out. So just don't be upset if you don't get it, because most of the time you're not gonna get it. But basically, either way, what you want to do is slide into this wall. You want to do this no matter if you want to go for a clip out or not, because sliding into the wall is faster either way. But if you do slide into this wall, there's a chance you will clip out here, which I do. As you see, this is the frame where I clip out of bounds. It just randomly happens. There's nothing really you can do to increase your chances. It just kind of happens sometimes. So if that happens, if you notice you clip out of bounds, you're currently pretty far up in the air, so it takes a while to fall down to the ground. As long as you're falling, pretty much just hold a hard left drift, like turn left as much as you can. So you see like this kind of structure right here as you fall out of bounds. If you see this, keep turning left. And then you see this structure right here. So basically go through this. And then by that time you've probably landed and you can just start moving in this direction. There's a mistake I did here in my PB, and it's excellent that I'm using this video as a part of the tutorial because it's a good example of me showing off the mistake that I made here. As you go out of bounds here, don't make the mistake of ending up with the angle too far facing to the right. If in doubt, turn more to the left and then adjust back to the right, rather than not turning to the left enough. Because if you go too far to the right, you approach the part where you clip back into the level from a very bad angle. That makes it really hard to clip back in and really slow to clip back in. So that's the mistake I did here. I didn't go far enough left. So as I passed through this thing here, I should have held left a little longer, but I didn't. So I just kept going straight here. And now you see this is the part. This is like the part of the map. This is like the last helix that you go up usually. So ideally you want to come out much more on the left if you approach this. But I went more to the right here where the path is already like a bit higher up in the air. And what I did was I tried to jump up here and get back and bounce. The problem is if you do that here, it's probably not going to work. So what I do here is I try to do a double jump up. But the problem is the bottom of the path is like, it's actually solid and it pushes you back down. So I try to get back and bounce here, and I fail to do it. And I lose time because of it. So I miss the track here, and then I have to turn around, turn back to the left, and then get back and bounce on a lower point. So on lap 2 I got the clip out again, and there I do it correctly, but this is a good example of me doing it wrong. So yeah, as I've said, if you clip out of bounds, if in doubt, if you're not 100% sure about your angle, keep going left a little longer and approach the track where you clip back and bounce earlier rather than too late. But yeah, get back on track here, go up.
Shit, I just lost time there. I'm not sure.
And basically do the track as normal. If you know the basic movements, you already know how to do this level. I'm not gonna explain like all the movements on this level because essentially it's the same as a no out of bounds. Nothing really changes. So if you're familiar with the movements, how this game works, you should sort of have a decent understanding of how to do this. If not, just kind of like watch a no out of bounds run of this level to make sure you know where to drift and everything. I'm not going to go into all the details here because it's not specific to this category. I'm just going to explain basically doing the out of bounds here for this level. But yeah, again, this PB run was insanely lucky, so I clip out here again, and this time you can see me do it correctly. So clip once again. This time I turn left a little more, like that. And now you see, instead of like ending up over here where the track is already curving back up, I end up here where the track is pretty much still on the ground, and I can very comfortably so I did cut it a little close here again to obviously save time. But if you want to be safe, just get back and bounce somewhere here. If you want to cut it close, turn right a bit earlier and jump up it. Just don't make the mistake of ending up super far to the right and then trying to jump through the floor. It's not going to work.
Okay.
One last thing for, I guess, explaining this. So this is another mistake I made in my PB because this was such a stressful situation that I basically forgot how this works. And I made this mistake. But if you do get a clip out, and then on the next lap you don't get a clip out, you will never have enough rings to go through the skate. So like if you get a clip on lap 1, on lap 2 you will have to go through the long path to the right here. It's very easy to accidentally, because you're used to, okay, I've done one lap and then on lap 2 I go straight through the shortcut here. It's very easy to autopilot through there because of this. But if you've done an out of bounds lap and then come around here on the second lap, you will never have enough rings to go through here. So this is my mistake here. I accidentally assumed I had enough rings because in my head I already did 2 laps. So usually when you do 2 laps, you have enough rings to go through here. But that's not the case because I did them out of bounds. So I just bumped into this door. So basically, if you do get a clip on lap 1, keep in mind on lap 2 you will have to go the long way around to the right here. So I forgot that here and I bumped into the door and looked like a fool. But yeah, just do this track as you always do it. See if you get any of the clips. Again, most likely you will not get any clips, but if you do, that's cool. And any laps you don't get clips on, just do them as normal and just finish out the race. And that's the 100% run. If during the tutorial there's anything important I later notice I forgot to mention, then I will add it in a pinned comment or in the description or something. But I think this should be all. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have any more questions, feel free to message me directly or write a comment or something. I'll try to get back to you. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope this can help some people who are interested in this category.